I helped an alien woman escape. The next day, she ruled the council. Ethan Cole walked along the docking bay corridors of the neutral space hub, his boots making soft echoes on the metallic floor. The hub, known as Zerath Station, was a place where countless species passed through daily, yet a tense silence filled the air in certain sectors. Ethan's role was simple, or so it seemed. Oversee logistics, maintain cargo schedules, and occasionally handle delicate situations with visiting delegates. But today, he was walking toward a section of the station few dared to enter, the high-security political wing. He paused at the reinforced doors, glancing at the small view panel. Inside, the room held prisoners that no species wanted to claim. Most were political dissidents, some labeled terrorists, others just inconvenient witnesses to intergalactic politics. Ethan had heard rumors about one of them, a woman named Sarilith, a figure shrouded in mystery and danger. Even the guards spoke of her in hushed tones. She had been kept in isolation for weeks, ever since she had spoken out against the Galactic Council's corrupt practices. When Ethan entered the corridor, the smell of recycled air mixed with faint metallic tang struck him. The door to her cell hissed open under his clearance code. She sat quietly on a simple bench, her posture straight and composed. Her skin shimmered faintly under the harsh white light, an unusual hue that made her seem almost ethereal. Most would have been intimidated, perhaps even frightened. But Ethan noticed something different. There was no fear in her eyes, only calm awareness. "You're Ethan Cole," she said softly, her voice smooth and deliberate. "I expected someone else to come today." Ethan raised an eyebrow, not used to prisoners speaking so directly. "Most people avoid this place," he said, keeping his voice neutral. "Why would they send someone like me?" Sarilith smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Because humans do unexpected things. Sometimes the least likely creatures carry the greatest courage." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Her words were strange, almost a warning. But before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and automated speakers warned of an imminent security breach. Ethan's first instinct was to run, to seek cover like every other human would have done. But when he looked at Sarilith, he realized she would not flee. She would wait, perhaps even face whatever was coming. He acted without thinking. In a few quick motions, he disabled the electronic locks on her cell. The mechanism clicked open, and Sarilith rose gracefully. Her movements were fluid, precise, every step measured. Ethan gestured toward the corridor. "This way, now!" They ran through the twisting halls of the station. Smoke and sparks from the malfunctioning security systems filled the air. Guards shouted, trying to regain control, but Ethan used his knowledge of the station's layout to lead them down less traveled maintenance tunnels. Sarilith followed closely, silent and observant, occasionally whispering directions that he could barely understand. Her knowledge of the station's hidden passages was incredible, almost as if she had been here before. During a brief pause behind a maintenance hatch, she finally spoke. "Why are you helping me, human? No one else would risk themselves for me." Ethan shrugged, trying to appear casual, though his chest burned with adrenaline. "I don't know, it just felt wrong to leave you there, and someone had to do it." Sarilith studied him carefully. Her alien eyes, wide and luminous, seemed to see into him. "Most of my people think in terms of advantage, power, or survival, but you act with something else, a choice based on conscience, not fear." Ethan didn't know how to respond. He had always believed that humans were underestimated, considered weak or unimportant in the galactic hierarchy. Perhaps she was the first being who understood that courage didn't require superiority, it required heart. Their journey continued through darkened corridors, the hum of the station's failing systems echoing around them. As they approached the lower hangar bays, a squad of armed council guards appeared, blocking their path. Ethan froze for a moment, realizing the danger. Sarilith stepped forward calmly, her hands raised in surrender, but Ethan shook his head. "No," he whispered, "not this time, not like that." Thinking quickly, he grabbed a maintenance drone nearby and activated its override. The drone spun in a circle, knocking down 2 guards and creating a small explosion that sent sparks flying. Sirens blared, but the distraction worked. Sarilith used the moment to slip past the guards, following Ethan toward the hangar bay where an unguarded transport shuttle waited. Once inside the shuttle, Ethan quickly sealed the doors and started the engine. Sarilith remained calm, watching him with an unreadable expression. "You are reckless," she said finally. Ethan chuckled nervously. "Maybe, but it worked, didn't it?" She gave a small nod. "Yes, for now." The shuttle lifted off, gliding through the station's outer docking bays. Through the observation window, Ethan saw Council ships mobilizing, their weapons systems activating in response to the escape. He felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. He had no political power, no influence, no advantage in this galaxy-wide conflict. But he had done what he thought was right, and that mattered even if no one else understood it. Hours passed in tense silence as the shuttle navigated through asteroid fields and debris belts. Finally, Sarilith spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Ethan Cole, you have no idea what you have done. You have changed more than your own life today. You have altered the balance of power, even if you do not realize it." Ethan frowned, unsure what she meant. "I just helped you escape." "That is never just," she replied. "To act with conscience when all others act with fear or selfishness, that is what the galaxy has forgotten. That is why humans are remarkable." Ethan felt a flush of pride, but also unease. He did not fully understand her words. Remarkable, perhaps. But in this galaxy, humans were small, often dismissed, sometimes used as pawns. Could one human really make a difference? Sarilith seemed to read his thoughts. "Humans are underestimated, yes, but sometimes the underestimated are the ones who make the greatest impact. Today, you have proven that." As the shuttle approached a hidden outpost on a remote planet, Ethan realized they were safe for the moment. The planet was barren, with harsh winds and rocky terrain, far from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. The shuttle landed with a soft thud, and both of them stepped outside into the cold, thin air. Sarilith looked around, her expression distant, almost mournful. "This is only the beginning," she said. "There are those in the Council who will stop at nothing to maintain their power. I was imprisoned because I challenged them, and now, because of your choice, I am free." Ethan swallowed. "And what will you do now?" She turned to him, her eyes reflecting determination and something deeper, wisdom and strategy. "I will do what I was meant to do. I will speak, and the galaxy will have to listen. But your part, human, is just as important. Without your courage, without your choice to act, none of this would be possible." For the first time in his life, Ethan felt the weight of significance in his actions. He had always believed humans were minor players in a universe dominated by powerful alien civilizations. Yet here he was, holding the fate of a single being who could change the course of history. And somehow, his small act had started a chain reaction that might reshape the galaxy itself. The wind whipped across the barren surface, carrying the faint scent of minerals and dust. Ethan and Sarilith looked out at the horizon, each lost in thought. He wondered what dangers awaited them, what challenges she would face, and whether humans like him could truly make a difference on such a scale. But for now, they had survived. And sometimes survival was the first step toward greatness. Sarilith finally spoke, breaking the silence. "Rest, human. Tomorrow, everything changes." Ethan nodded, though sleep would not come easily. He had seen the power of conscience, the strength of unexpected courage, and the way one small act could ripple across the galaxy. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time he believed that humanity, weak, underestimated, and often overlooked, might have a role to play in shaping the stars. And with that thought, he allowed himself to close his eyes, knowing that the moment he woke, the galaxy would no longer be the same. The barren planet's wind whipped around Ethan as he followed Sarilith across the jagged rocks, each step careful against the uneven terrain. The shuttle sat behind them, silent and still, a reminder that their escape from Zerath Station was just the first act of something much larger. Ethan shivered, not from the cold, but from the realization that nothing about this situation was ordinary. He had helped a prisoner escape, yes, but Sarilith was no ordinary prisoner. There was power in her presence, a quiet force that seemed to shape the air around her. She paused at a high ridge, scanning the horizon with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. "This world is remote," she said, her voice steady. "The Council will not find us here immediately, but they will send their agents. They always do." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "I assumed once we left the station we'd be safe." Sarilith shook her head. "Safety is an illusion for those who challenge power. I have enemies who will cross the stars to silence me, and you, human, are now part of this conflict." Ethan felt a pang of fear. He had no training in intergalactic politics, no connections, no leverage. Yet here he was, involved in a battle he barely understood. Still, the look in Sarilith's eyes was not one of despair, it was determination. And somehow that steadiness gave him courage. They moved down into a narrow canyon, the rocks rising sharply on either side. Sarilith led the way, her steps precise and confident. "I am a voice-bearer," she said quietly, as though explaining something fundamental. "My people, the Larithians, were once advisors and guardians to the council. Our role was to challenge corruption, to speak truths that others feared. But the council silenced us long ago. I am one of the few remaining, and they sought to remove me before I could expose their schemes." Ethan's brow furrowed. "So, you're not a criminal?" "No," she replied firmly. "I am a threat to those who abuse power. That is why they imprisoned me, and that is why you helped me escape. Humans act unpredictably. They do not always calculate risk like others. Your action was guided by conscience, not by fear or advantage." Ethan considered her words. He had always thought of humans as small and weak in the galaxy, easily ignored. Yet here he was, proving that courage could be a weapon more powerful than advanced ships or armies. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, they found shelter in a small cavern, a natural alcove shielded from view. Ethan set down a small supply pack he had taken from the shuttle, and Sarilith sat on a flat stone, her posture still as perfect as it had been in the cell. "You saved me," she said, finally allowing a faint smile. "And in doing so, you have altered the course of more than just your own life. You have given me a chance to reclaim what was stolen." Ethan shook his head. "I only did what felt right." "I didn't think it would. I didn't think I could." Sarilith raised a hand, stopping him. "You acted. That is what matters. Many see what is wrong and do nothing. You saw it and chose action. That is why humans are remarkable. You have no place in our politics, yet your choice carries weight beyond your understanding." Ethan's heart pounded. He had always underestimated himself. Perhaps the galaxy underestimated humans entirely. The wind howled outside the cavern, and for a moment silence enveloped them. Then Sarilith spoke again, her tone turning serious. "We cannot remain hidden here forever. The Council's forces are fast and their spies are clever. We must move. There is a place where I can call for a gathering, where the old protocols allow a voice-bearer to reclaim authority. It is dangerous, but it is necessary." Ethan hesitated. "And what if they catch us before we get there?" "Then we fight," she said simply. "Or we die." "But you will not die here. You have the human ability to adapt, to think differently. That is our advantage." For the next few hours, they traveled through narrow canyons and rocky passes, avoiding the main patrol routes. Sarilith moved silently, her steps almost gliding over the uneven terrain. Ethan struggled to keep up, but her calm presence made the journey less intimidating. Every now and then, she would pause and gesture to the horizon, pointing out hidden paths or natural cover. Finally, they reached the edge of a vast plateau. Below lay a hidden valley, shrouded in mist and barely visible from above. Sarilith led Ethan down a winding path into the valley, where an ancient structure stood, partially ruined but still intact. Its walls were etched with symbols that glowed faintly, evidence of old Larithian craftsmanship. "This is the assembly hall," Sarilith said, her voice carrying reverence. "Once, the voice-bearers would convene here to hold the council accountable. It has not been used in centuries, but the protocols remain. If I am to reclaim my place, I must speak here. And you will see the true power of conscience in action." Ethan looked at the crumbling hall, unsure what to expect. "And the council, won't they just—" "They will try," Sarilith interrupted. "But they cannot break the rules of their own governance. The protocols are ancient, older than most species in this sector. They must listen if the procedure is followed correctly, and once I speak, the truth cannot be ignored." As they prepared to enter the hall, Ethan noticed something else. Strange sensors and ancient devices lined the walls, seemingly dormant but humming faintly. "What are these?" he asked. "They are the devices of the voice-bearers," Sarilith explained. "They record truth, amplify words, and bind agreements. When I speak here, all who listen will feel the authority of the office, whether they want to or not. That is why they feared me. That is why they imprisoned me. They feared the truth." Ethan swallowed hard. "And you think humans can understand that?" Sarilith looked at him, her gaze steady. "Humans do not need to understand fully to act rightly. You acted when others would not. That is proof that conscience is universal, not bound by species. You see wrong and you choose to correct it. That is what the Council has forgotten." They entered the hall, the air thick with history and the faint scent of metal and stone. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. Statues of past voice-bearers lined the walls, their faces solemn, watching silently. Sarilith moved to the center of the hall, placing her hands on a central pedestal. "The council may send agents," she said quietly, "but here we are safe for now. And soon, the galaxy will see that fear cannot hold back truth forever." Hours passed as Ethan helped Sarilith prepare. She studied the ancient texts, muttering phrases in a language he did not understand. Ethan watched, learning to appreciate the depth of her knowledge. He had thought this was merely an escape mission, but it had become something far greater. They were not just fleeing. They were preparing to challenge centuries of corruption, to ignite change that could ripple across the stars. As night fell over the valley, Sarilith finally looked at him. "Rest now, human. Tomorrow we begin the true task. You have already shown courage. Soon you will witness what that courage can accomplish." Ethan lay on a flat rock nearby, staring at the stars above. He felt the weight of what was coming. The council would not let this pass quietly. But he also felt a strange sense of pride. For the first time, he understood that being human in this galaxy was not a weakness. It was a gift. The ability to act rightly, even when the odds were against you, could shape destinies. He closed his eyes, listening to the wind and the faint hum of the ancient hall. Somewhere far above, the council was mobilizing, unaware that a single human and a single voice-bearer were about to change everything. And in that moment, Ethan realized the truth Sarilith had hinted at before. Sometimes it was the smallest actions, the quietest choices, that could shake the foundations of empires. Tomorrow, the galaxy would witness the first ripple of change. And humans, underestimated as they were, would be at its center. The hidden valley remained quiet as dawn crept across the jagged horizon. Ethan Cole stirred from his uneasy sleep, his mind racing with questions. He had helped Sarilith escape the station, traveled across treacherous terrain, and arrived at this ancient assembly hall. But now reality settled heavily on him. The council would not ignore her defiance. They would send ships, agents, or spies to silence her before she could speak. And somehow he, a human with no rank or power, was caught in the middle. Sarilith moved gracefully across the hall, her hands tracing the symbols etched into the stone walls. Her luminous eyes scanned every corner, every device left by the ancient voice-bearers. She muttered softly in her native tongue, her words flowing with a rhythm that resonated with the humming sensors around the hall. Ethan watched, fascinated, though he understood none of it. It was clear that these preparations were more than ritual. They were mechanisms of authority, ancient systems designed to amplify truth and demand attention from anyone who dared resist. "You will see soon," she said, glancing at him. "The council may think they can control events, but their rules bind them more than they realize. If we follow the old protocols correctly, they must acknowledge me." Ethan frowned. "And what if they do? What if they send soldiers or warships?" Sarilith smiled faintly, a mixture of patience and confidence. "They cannot disobey what is written. The voice-bearer's authority is older than the council itself. The council fears it, which is why they imprisoned me. But you acted when others would not. That is why you are here. You are proof that courage matters, even to those who underestimate it." Ethan felt a surge of pride, quickly followed by unease. The idea that a human could influence galactic events seemed almost unbelievable. He had no fleet, no army, not even a title. Yet Sarilith treated him as an essential part of this unfolding plan. Hours passed as they prepared. Ethan assisted as best he could, moving small devices, adjusting panels, and following her instructions. Sarilith worked silently, her focus intense, but occasionally she glanced at him, a subtle acknowledgement that his presence mattered. By midday, the hall was ready. Ancient mechanisms hummed, glowing symbols activated, and a faint energy pulsed through the stone floor. "We must wait for the right moment," Sarilith said. "The council will attempt to intervene, they always do, but this is not a matter of strength or numbers, it is a matter of procedure and truth." Ethan nodded, trying to remain calm. Yet his mind wandered to the ships and soldiers the council might send. The thought of a human and a single alien woman standing against a galactic governing body seemed impossible, and yet he trusted her. She had faced imprisonment, betrayal, and death, yet she remained composed. Perhaps that composure was stronger than any fleet. As the day wore on, faint signals appeared on their scanners. Small council vessels had been dispatched to search for them, though they were still far away. "They will not reach us immediately," Sarilith said. "But their presence is inevitable. We must act before hesitation costs us everything." Ethan watched her prepare, noting the careful precision in her movements. She placed her hands on the central pedestal and began chanting softly in her language. The sensors responded, lights glowing brighter, symbols shifting and rotating in patterns that seemed alive. Ethan could feel the energy in the room, a vibration that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. Suddenly, the valley outside shimmered as a transport vessel appeared, hovering low. Council soldiers disembarked, their weapons scanning the terrain. Ethan felt his heart race. "They found us," he whispered. Sarilith's eyes remained calm. "They see the hall, but they do not understand its power. Observe, human. They will act, but procedure will protect truth." A group of council agents approached the entrance, moving cautiously. Ethan thought about fleeing, but Sarilith placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Do not be afraid. Fear is natural, but courage defines action. Stand with me." Ethan drew a deep breath, steadying himself. He realized she was right. He could run, hide, or do nothing, as most humans might, but he had already acted once. This was the moment to act again, even if he did not fully understand the consequences. As the council agents entered the hall, the glowing symbols flared, sending a pulse of energy that made them stagger back. Sarilith's voice rang out, clear and commanding, amplified by the ancient devices. She spoke not just to the humans, but to the galaxy itself, reciting truths the council had long ignored: corruption, injustice, and the silencing of dissent. Ethan watched in awe as the agents froze, unable to ignore the authority in her words. Their own protocols forced them to listen, even if they resisted internally. The hall's energy pulsed stronger, symbols rotating, amplifying every syllable. Sarilith's calm defiance was a force in itself, and Ethan understood that courage could be a weapon more powerful than any technology. Hours seemed to pass in this tense standoff. Outside, the council ships remained, unsure how to respond. Inside, the agents were compelled by the procedures they had been trained to uphold but had long forgotten. Sarilith continued, outlining the injustices that had plagued the council, calling for accountability, fairness, and the reinstatement of the voice-bearers. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. He had never seen anything like this, one woman standing alone, using knowledge, tradition, and truth as her armor. And he realized that his small role, helping her escape, had been the spark that made all this possible. Without him, she would have been imprisoned, silenced, and the galaxy would have remained blind to its corruption. Suddenly, one of the agents made a move toward her, a blaster raised. Ethan reacted instinctively, grabbing a nearby control panel and activating a defensive mechanism. A barrier of energy shot up, separating them. The agent froze, momentarily disoriented, and Sarilith did not skip a beat. Her words continued, unwavering, louder than before. Ethan realized then that human quick thinking, improvisation in the moment, was complementing Sarilith's plan perfectly. She relied on ancient laws and traditions. He relied on instinct and courage. Together, they formed an unlikely combination that the council could not anticipate. As the day gave way to evening, more council forces arrived. Larger ships, more agents, weapons primed. Ethan's heart pounded. "We can't hold them forever," he said. Sarilith turned to him, her calm presence unshaken. "We do not hold them with force. We hold them with truth. Courage and conscience bind reality more than fear ever can. You will see, human, they cannot ignore what is inevitable." Ethan watched in amazement as the council's officers began to hesitate. Orders were shouted, but confusion spread. The ancient protocols, long dormant, were reactivated by Sarilith's presence and words. Her authority was undeniable, recognized by the very structure of the council itself. Then, a voice from outside boomed through the valley. A high-ranking council official had arrived, attempting to assert control. "Step down, Sarilith. You have no authority here." Sarilith's voice rang out again, louder and clearer than ever. "The authority is not given by fear nor by rank, but by the voice of truth. The council's corruption has silenced what is just. I claim what is mine, as dictated by protocol, and your attempts to resist only reveal the weakness of your governance." Ethan felt the weight of history in her words. The energy in the hall pulsed stronger, symbols rotating faster, lights flaring. Outside, the council ships wavered, their crews uncertain. Protocol and law bound them to listen, even as their pride resisted. Hours passed, and Ethan saw the council begin to yield. Agents lowered weapons, officers whispered to each other, and hesitation spread across the ranks. Sarilith did not waver. She recounted every injustice, every act of silencing, every violation of truth. And through it all, Ethan realized the profound impact of his human courage. Without his choice to act when no one else would, none of this could have happened. Finally, as the stars began to appear in the sky above the valley, a council official stepped forward, his expression a mixture of fear and respect. "Sarilith, your claim is undeniable. We must acknowledge your authority." Ethan felt a surge of relief and amazement. The impossible was happening. One woman with the courage to speak truth and a human who acted without fear had forced the most powerful governing body in the galaxy to recognize justice. Sarilith turned to Ethan, her eyes calm and luminous. "You see, human, courage changes everything. Your choice to act allowed this moment to exist. Humanity's strength is not in fleets or weapons, but in conscience and action. You have proven that today." Ethan swallowed, his chest tight with emotion. He had never imagined that a single act of conscience could have such consequences, and yet here he was, witnessing history in motion. The council began to disperse, officers whispering, agents retreating to their ships. Sarilith remained at the pedestal, her expression serene. Ethan understood then that this was only the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, but the first, decisive victory had been won. As they watched the stars from the valley, Ethan realized the truth Sarilith had spoken before. The smallest acts, the quietest choices, could shake empires. And humans, often underestimated, had the capacity to alter the course of history when they acted with courage. Ethan finally allowed himself to breathe, knowing that the galaxy was watching, and that humanity, in its quiet way, had made its mark. The valley was calm after the council agents had retreated, but Ethan Cole felt no relief. He and Sarilith had won a critical moment, yet the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on him. The council might have acknowledged her authority, but it was a fragile recognition. One wrong move, one sign of weakness, and centuries of corruption could rise to crush everything they had begun. Ethan understood that this was no longer just a mission of escape. It was a test of courage, of patience, and of morality in a galaxy that had long forgotten these qualities. Sarilith moved to the center of the ancient assembly hall, her luminous eyes scanning the symbols etched into the stone walls. The energy from the ancient devices pulsed beneath her hands, responding to her presence. "Today the council has seen truth," she said softly, almost to herself. "Tomorrow they must act upon it, but action requires witnesses, human. That is why you remain important." Ethan looked around, taking in the full scale of the hall. It was vast, more significant than any building he had seen, even on the largest stations. Statues of past voice-bearers lined the walls, their faces solemn and timeless. The air hummed with quiet energy, a mixture of the ancient devices and the power Sarilith wielded. He had never felt anything like it before. For the first time, he understood the gravity of what humans could do when they acted with conscience. "You've proven that action matters," Sarilith continued. "The galaxy has underestimated humans for too long. Your courage is a beacon. But it must extend beyond this hall. We have enemies who will not stop. Those who feared my voice will attempt to undermine it at every turn, and they will come for you as well." Ethan swallowed hard. He had known danger followed them, but hearing it confirmed made his chest tighten. "So, what do we do? How do we protect ourselves?" Sarilith smiled faintly, a mixture of reassurance and strategy. "We do not run, we do not hide. We act according to the rules, the ancient laws, and the authority they fear. That is enough to keep us safe for now. The council cannot break what is older than their power, no matter how hard they try." The next day dawned crisp and bright. Ethan and Sarilith prepared to make the journey to the nearest official council assembly world. This was the place where all matters of galactic governance were formally addressed. Normally, a single human would never be allowed within its halls, let alone someone like Ethan. But Sarilith's claim of authority as a voice-bearer and the protocols of the ancient system allowed her, and him, entry. As their transport shuttle approached the assembly world, Ethan watched through the viewport. Towering structures gleamed under the twin suns, a city built with elegance and precision. Council vessels filled the skies, their engines humming in synchronized order. The scale of it left Ethan awed. This was the center of power in the galaxy, and he was about to enter it not as a diplomat, not as a soldier, but as a human who had acted with conscience when it mattered most. The shuttle landed in a secluded hangar. Sarilith guided Ethan through hidden passages, avoiding official checkpoints until they reached a secret entrance into the main assembly hall. The air inside was electric with anticipation. Council members of countless species had begun to gather, sensing that something unprecedented was about to occur. Sarilith stepped forward confidently, and Ethan followed, feeling the eyes of the galaxy upon him. The chamber fell silent, the assembled delegates unsure how to respond. They had heard rumors of her escape, seen reports of the Valley standoff, but no one had expected her to appear in person, and certainly not with a human at her side. One of the senior council officials rose, his voice sharp with authority. "Sarilith, your actions are unprecedented. You have escaped imprisonment, defied council orders, and now you appear here claiming authority. This is unacceptable." Sarilith's response was calm, her voice amplified by the hall's ancient devices. "I claim authority not through defiance but through the protocols you yourselves established. Your fear of truth does not negate its power. I am here to restore balance and accountability, not to challenge the law itself. Those who oppose this action oppose justice, and justice cannot be denied." Ethan watched as murmurs spread through the chamber. Delegates whispered among themselves, some in awe, others in fear. The council had long relied on appearances, intimidation, and calculated silence to maintain control. They had never encountered a situation where the law itself, ancient and binding, demanded recognition. A senior official attempted to interrupt, stepping forward with his hand raised. "You may speak, but we will not recognize your authority." Sarilith raised a hand, and the hall seemed to pulse with energy. Symbols along the walls glowed brighter, and a low hum filled the chamber. The delegates froze. Their own protocols, embedded in law and enforced by centuries of tradition, required acknowledgement. Sarilith's presence activated these ancient devices, amplifying her authority to a level that could not be ignored. Ethan felt a strange sense of awe. He realized that the galaxy's greatest powers, ships, fleets, armies, could never compare to the influence of truth when wielded through established law. Sarilith's calm courage had turned fear into order, chaos into recognition. And he, a human, had played a part in making this possible. "Human courage is rare," Sarilith said, turning her gaze toward Ethan. "You acted when others would not. That is why you remain here. Your presence proves that the smallest, seemingly insignificant beings can change outcomes when they choose to act rightly." Ethan's chest tightened. He had always doubted humans' place in the galaxy, believing they were minor, overlooked, and dismissed. Yet here, at the center of intergalactic power, he felt the weight of humanity's potential. One act, one choice, had shifted the balance of influence in ways he could scarcely comprehend. Outside the chamber, council security forces waited, uncertain whether to intervene. Ships hovered in orbit, their crews instructed to respond, but the legal protocols within the hall prevented immediate action. The devices activated by Sarilith had created a bubble of authority. Within it, the law could not be broken, no matter the power or firepower brought against them. Hours passed as Sarilith recounted the injustices she had faced. She spoke of corruption, bribery, suppression of dissent, and the silencing of truth. She did not shout, she did not beg. She simply spoke, her voice calm, measured, and amplified by the ancient devices. Ethan watched as delegates shifted uncomfortably, unable to resist the authority that demanded acknowledgement. One by one, the council began to respond. Some raised objections, citing procedural loopholes, but the ancient devices and the protocols Sarilith invoked rendered most arguments meaningless. The chamber seemed to bend under the weight of truth itself. Delegates who had long relied on fear and intimidation now found themselves compelled to follow the law, not their pride. Ethan noticed a subtle change in the room. Officers who had entered the hall ready to challenge Sarilith now hesitated. Their faces betrayed uncertainty. Her calm determination, combined with the visible power of the devices, created an atmosphere where resistance was impossible. Finally, the head of the council, an imposing alien known as Varkel, stepped forward. His voice carried authority, but even he seemed affected by the hall's energy. "Sarilith, your claim is remarkable. Your actions follow the protocols, and the devices confirm your authority. We must acknowledge your leadership, at least temporarily, until a formal review is conducted. Ethan felt a rush of relief and awe. The impossible had happened. One woman armed with courage, knowledge, and truth, and a human who had acted when others would not, had forced the highest council in the galaxy to recognize justice. Sarilith turned to Ethan, her expression calm but infused with gratitude. You see now, human. Courage and conscience are as powerful as fleets and weapons. Without your choice to act, this recognition would not exist. You have changed more than your own life. You have changed the galaxy. Ethan blinked, overwhelmed. He had never imagined that one human could influence events on such a scale. And yet, he realized that the choice to act rightly, even when it seems small, is what defines true strength. As the council members whispered, debated, and began to implement changes, Sarilith and Ethan stepped back from the pedestal. The chamber was no longer a place of fear and corruption. It had become a center for accountability and justice. Delegates took their positions, knowing that for the first time in centuries, the voice-bearer's authority could not be ignored. Ethan looked at Sarilith, who stood tall, luminous, and serene. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," she said, "we rebuild trust. The council will enforce fairness, release prisoners, and correct its mistakes. And humanity, your people, will be recognized as a force of conscience. One choice, one act can ripple across the galaxy. Never forget that." Ethan felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he believed that humans, often underestimated and overlooked, could shape history not through dominance, but through moral courage. And he realized that the galaxy was finally beginning to see what he had always known. That true strength comes not from weapons or power, but from the courage to act rightly when it matters most. As the chamber slowly emptied, delegates preparing to implement Sarilith's directives, Ethan and Sarilith walked through the hall together. Outside, the twin suns set over the city, casting golden light on the structures below. The galaxy had shifted. The council had been forced to recognize truth, and humans, small and seemingly insignificant, had proven that conscience could change everything. For Ethan, the realization was profound. He had acted when others would not. He had helped a single alien woman escape, and in doing so, he had helped reshape the center of galactic power. He understood now that courage was contagious, that conscience was a weapon of immense power, and that humans, underestimated as they were, had a place among the stars not by domination, but by choice. And as night fell over the assembly world, Ethan felt the first real sense of purpose he had ever known. The twin suns of the assembly world cast long shadows across the city as Ethan Cole stepped out of the ancient hall with Sarilith by his side. The events of the past days still felt surreal. From the escape at Zerath Station to the confrontation in the Hidden Valley, and finally, the unprecedented gathering in the council chambers, Ethan could hardly believe what had happened. Yet every look, every whispered conversation among the council delegates confirmed that it was real. The galaxy had begun to change, and humans, through courage and conscience, were now a part of that change. Sarilith led him down the stone steps of the assembly hall. Her movements were as graceful as ever, but there was a new lightness to her step, a sense of purpose restored after years of imprisonment and silence. "Ethan," she said, "you have seen what courage can do, but there is still much work to be done. Authority is not enough without action." Ethan nodded, though his thoughts were crowded with questions. He had expected his role to end at the escape, perhaps at the council confrontation. He had never imagined that a human could be so deeply involved in the political reshaping of the galaxy. I don't know if I can do more," he admitted quietly. "I'm just one person." Sarilith stopped and looked at him, her luminous eyes steady and unwavering. "One person is enough. Courage does not require fleets, armies, or rank. It only requires action, choice, and conscience. You have already proven that. The galaxy remembers those who act rightly, even when they are small." As they walked through the bustling streets of the assembly city, they saw the first tangible signs of change. Council agents who had once moved with cold precision were now implementing reforms. Political prisoners were being released from hidden facilities. Long-ignored worlds received attention from officials who were now bound by the protocols Sarilith had invoked. It was a galaxy in the midst of transformation, and every corner seemed to hum with cautious hope. Ethan paused to watch a group of children playing near a fountain, their laughter clear and unburdened. He realized that this, too, was part of the change. For the first time in centuries, hope was being restored. Humans like him, often dismissed or underestimated, had contributed to this transformation not with power but with courage. He felt a quiet pride swell in his chest. "Do you see it?" Sarilith asked softly, gesturing to the activity around them. The council feared the truth, yet now it must follow it. They cannot undo what has been set in motion. The world and the galaxy are beginning to respond. Ethan nodded. "It's incredible. I never imagined that helping you could, I don't know, start something like this." "That is the nature of action," Sarilith replied. "One choice creates a ripple. You acted when no one else would, and now the ripple is spreading farther than you can see. Humans often underestimate themselves, but your species carries the strength of conscience. That is more powerful than you realize." They entered a small chamber within the assembly hall where Sarilith would begin her work as the recognized voice-bearer. Ancient devices hummed softly, recording her declarations and amplifying them across the galaxy. Delegates, representatives from countless worlds, began to gather. Some arrived with skepticism, others with fear, but all were compelled to witness the changes Sarilith would initiate. Ethan stood behind her, observing quietly. He felt a mixture of awe and nervousness. Though he had acted courageously, this moment felt different. He was now part of something that could affect billions of lives across multiple star systems. Sarilith began to speak, her voice calm yet resonant. She outlined a plan to restore fairness, ensure transparency, and prevent the abuse of power that had plagued the Council for centuries. Every word was deliberate, every phrase calculated to invoke the ancient protocols. Ethan watched as the delegates listened, some nodding, some frowning, but none able to resist the authority embedded in her position. Hours passed as she continued, and Ethan realized how seamlessly her words blended with action. This was not just speech, it was governance, justice, and strategy in motion. He felt a quiet thrill, knowing that he had played a part in making this possible. Finally, she paused and turned to him. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "your courage has been essential. Your choice to act when others would not has reminded the galaxy that conscience is a force greater than fear. I acknowledge your contribution not as a human subordinate, but as a partner in this change. The Council must see that even the smallest beings can alter the course of history." Delegates murmured, some astonished, some impressed. Ethan's heart pounded, but he felt no pride in a boastful sense. Instead, it was a deep, quiet recognition. Humans, long underestimated, could indeed shape the galaxy when they acted rightly. As the council session continued, reforms were formally recorded. Corrupt officials were removed, hidden agendas exposed, and new representatives appointed to ensure fairness and accountability. The ancient protocols Sarilith had invoked required strict adherence, leaving little room for resistance. Ethan watched as centuries of inertia began to unravel, replaced with a structure guided by justice and conscience. Outside the hall, news of Sarilith's authority and the Council's recognition spread quickly. Ships broadcasted updates, worlds discussed the implications, and humans across the galaxy were finally seen as moral equals. Ethan realized that the ripple he had started by acting courageously at Zerath Station had reached far beyond what he could have imagined. In a quiet moment, Sarilith turned to him. "The work is not finished," she said. "The galaxy will always have challenges, but you have proven that even one human acting rightly can create change. That is a lesson the Council and the galaxy must never forget." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "I understand now," he said softly. "Courage, conscience, those are what really matter." As the day gave way to night, Ethan and Sarilith walked through the streets of the Assembly City. The lights of the twin suns faded, replaced by the soft glow of artificial illumination. For the first time, Ethan felt a sense of belonging, not because of power or status, but because of choice. He had chosen to act rightly, and in doing so, he had changed history. They reached a balcony overlooking the city. Below, citizens of countless species moved about, aware of the reforms and the recognition of justice. Ethan felt a profound sense of hope. He realized that the galaxy was not fixed, not perfect, but capable of growth and improvement. And humans, long underestimated, had a vital role to play. Sarilith placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have seen the impact of choice, Ethan. The galaxy will remember this day, and it will remember you. Your species is often overlooked, but you have proven that conscience and courage are more powerful than fleets or weapons. Never doubt that. Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. For the first time, he understood what it truly meant to make a difference. It was not through dominance, intimidation, or cunning, but through action guided by conscience. He had acted when it mattered most, and the galaxy had shifted because of it. As they stood together, overlooking the city and the stars beyond, Ethan realized that this was only the beginning. Sarilith would continue her work, reshaping the council, restoring fairness, and enforcing justice. And humans, through courage and conscience, would continue to play their part in this evolving galaxy. The night was quiet, filled with the soft hum of distant ships and the gentle whisper of wind through the structures of the assembly city. Ethan looked at the stars and thought of all the moments that had brought him here: the escape from Zerath Station, the journey through the hidden valley, and the confrontation with the council. Each step had required courage, and each choice had contributed to the greater good. He realized that the galaxy was not just a place of politics, power, and technology. It was a place where conscience mattered, where one small act could ripple across worlds and shape the course of history. And he, a single human, had been part of that change. Sarilith turned to him, her expression calm but filled with a quiet intensity. "Rest now, Ethan. You have earned it. Tomorrow the Council will continue its work, the reforms will take hold, and humanity will be remembered for its courage. But for now, we can reflect on what has been achieved." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of completion and pride. He had helped a single alien woman escape, and together they had reshaped the center of galactic power. He understood now that courage, choice, and conscience were forces that could never be underestimated. As he lay down to rest, he felt the weight of history settle lightly on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a reminder of what humans could achieve. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and uncertainties, but he had learned that even one human, acting rightly, could make a difference beyond imagination. The twin suns would rise again, casting light on a galaxy forever changed by courage. Sarilith, now recognized as a voice-bearer and rightful authority, would lead the council with justice. And humanity, through one human's action, had earned its place among the stars, not by conquest or domination, but by conscience, courage, and the unwavering choice to do what was right. Ethan closed his eyes, allowing the quiet hum of the city and the distant stars to lull him into sleep. Tomorrow, the galaxy would continue to shift, continue to grow, and continue to be tested. But for now, he rested, knowing that he had played a part in something far greater than himself. And in that moment, the galaxy had finally seen what humans could do.